Hey there, I am Barb Higgins, and this is 1,000 Tiny Steps. In this podcast, I share my stories of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy as I continue to retrace my steps and ponder what led to the death of my daughter Molly. By doing so, I hope to not only help myself, but to bring purpose and possibility to those who listen. If you are ready to laugh, cry, shake your head in disbelief, then tie, buckle, face up, or slip on your shoes and join me as we begin our 1,000 Tiny Steps. Hey everybody, Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode 138 of 1,000 Tiny Steps. So I'm recording this episode on Easter Sunday, which is March 31st. You're listening to it the day before Gracie's birthday. I'm recording it the day before Molly's birthday. So you can see a lot goes into today's emotional status and well-being of Barb. It's Easter Sunday, a holiday that Gracie, Molly, and I used to enjoy in a very non-religious way. It was all about the baskets and the hunts and in those traditions. We often watched a movie together as a family, and we always had a big dinner, but we often had big dinners on Sundays anyway. April 1st is Molly's birthday. This is a day that year to year varies a little bit for me in how the day plays out. Last year, it was pretty awful. Last year was the year that nobody remembered things. Dates went by and nobody reached out family-wise. I had a really hard time with that. I've made growth on that. I don't worry so much about what other people do or don't remember. I can't control that. But as I sit here, tomorrow is the day that Molly was born. And I'm recording it the day before Gracie's birthday. And Gracie's birthday is a painful piece of my story in the months and years leading up to Molly's death, because I missed her birthday in 2016 and 2015. And she took that incredibly personally, and I don't blame her. And, you know, your birthday is supposed to be a happy memory. And on Gracie's 15th birthday, I wasn't here. She and Molly held hands and cried. They sang the Taylor Swift song 15, which is not a happy song. And Molly died 7 days later. So, you know, Gracie's birthday for her is an up and down event. So in a lot of my recent episodes, I've talked about movies and TV series and things I've seen, primarily on Netflix. They should sponsor my podcast because I talk about Netflix all the time. But I recently found out that a lot of procrastination style behaviors is related to trauma responses. You get into freeze mode where you just can't do anything. And so you sit. And oftentimes in my most depressive times, in my most trauma inducing moments, I have stayed perfectly still. That's where I feel fine. I have to lie down and stay still. And oftentimes I'm that way when I'm physically sick as well. I think a lot of people want to lie down when they're sick, but I definitely go to freeze response. I don't know what to do, so I stay still and wait for things to evidence themselves or to calm down. I think my recent, addiction to binge watching series or watching movies on, Netflix or Hulu or whatever stems from a bit of trauma response. And so here we are now. As I record this, we're just beginning the season of Molly, but when you hear it, we're a month in. And so this is a time of year, April and May, that in some ways is becoming more manageable and in other ways becomes increasingly difficult. So let me start with two movies that I watched and how they relate to the day I'm recording, which is Easter Sunday. I watched this movie called I Can Only Imagine, and I didn't choose it because of what it was about. It's 5 a.m. I'm awake, I have coffee, I'm sitting downstairs. I just don't want to think. I want something to entertain me or to keep me occupied. And so it looked good. It showed a little boy and sort of an abusive childhood, and he does some big thing. And so I don't know what that is. He writes a song. And so I watched it today, which is March 31st, which is Easter Sunday. And it's a bit of a Christian-based movie, although not much of what you see in the movie would remind you of Christianity in its nicest form. It sort of starts at the end. It starts with this singer telling a story about a song he wrote, in that the whole thing took him 20 minutes, the music and the words. And the woman who's interviewing him is Amy Grant, and I believe she plays herself in the movie. And she is talking about the fact that this song wasn't written in 20 minutes. It was a lifetime. And then the movie then goes back to when he's little. And one of the first scenes is him being brought to a church camp by his mom and dropped off. And he has the best week of his life, and he keeps a journal. And he meets this girl, Shannon, and they fall in love when they're, 10. And that relationship goes on throughout the movie, on and off throughout the movie. And it just goes into his mother deserting them and his father being incredibly abusive and horribly mean. And
He tries everything he can to make his dad love him. And eventually he has an injury that precludes him from playing football like his dad did. And he gets cast in the play Oklahoma at his high school. And he doesn't want to do it because he knows he assumes his dad will make fun of him. While this is going on, his dad is diagnosed with cancer. The son doesn't know this. And he's a major star in the play. His voice is beautiful. He has this amazing singing voice that no one believes he has. He basically leaves home at 17 and starts a band with some friends, Mercy Me. And they do okay. They cut a couple of CDs that they sort of do on their own, and they have gigs and they make it. They live basically in a bus, a big school bus style bus. And Bart, the lead character, somehow gets this well-known record producer to come and listen and actually spend some time with them. And he gives Bart some advice. Bart tries to follow it, but they get this big gig and they play, and it's ultimately a failure. And he doesn't understand he's going to quit music. The producer says to Bart, you need to reconcile your life. Sing about your childhood. Sing about your dad. And so Bart goes home and spends time with his father, not knowing that his father is now dying of cancer. And am I giving the movie away? I am. But it won't take away from watching it. You don't need to be surprised by the movie for it to impact you well. And so, of course, he has meaningful time with his father, who, in Bart's absence, in trying to be well and fight cancer, has stopped drinking and has become a believer in Jesus. And so Bart goes home and is going to leave because you want to say you're sorry and everything's fine. And when he's trying to leave, he discovers a pamphlet on pancreatic cancer and realizes that his father's dying. And so he stays. And in the process of staying, he goes through his own journals. And he realizes in that first church camp, I want to forgive, and you leave a line there. And through the process of journaling, you choose one person or several people that you want to forgive. And he puts my dad. And so he rediscovers the pain and trauma of being a kind of pudgy 10-year-old whose mother leaves him with an abusive dad and a dad who beats the shit out of him. And all of that is processed. It's processed through a Christian lens, but it's not fluffy. Ultimately, what inspires the son is that if someone as evil and bad as his dad can transform through Jesus, then anyone can. And he has to look at himself. So yes, this movie is, they're a Christian, Mercy Me is a Christian band. So it's through Christianity. I'll tell you right now, the way the movie's written and presented, it's not a proselytizing Christian movie at all. It really talks about being at the depths of your depths, self-forgiveness, empathy, understanding, all of it. It's just personal growth. And Bart has used music, listening to it, writing it, singing it, performing it, to cope with the traumas of his life. So I watched this on Easter Sunday. And so I'm bawling throughout the entire movie. I could not cry now. I couldn't stop crying. And it was just, I look at Bart's character and all that he went through as I sometimes look at Bart's dad as me. I look at all the mistakes I made in the last year of Molly's life and the last few years of her life and just choices I made. Forgiveness was a major theme of this for me because I have a hard time forgiving myself. And I'm still very angry at some other people in my life. Does it mean I haven't forgiven them? In some cases, I'm not there yet. I have forgiven aspects of it, but there are people that I have continued forgiveness work to do. So it just struck me. And I saw the tenderness in Bart. So the song is called I Can Only Imagine, and that's the name of the movie. And the band is Mercy Me, and the song is beautiful. When I listen to it, all I think about is Molly and all that went into what ultimately culminated in her death. I think of Gracie and how I let Gracie down. And I don't think of Jesus when I listen to the song. And because, well, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Baha'i. I believe in Jesus. As a Baha'i, you believe in all the prophets. And I have watched people that I love transform themselves through a love of God and a chosen religion. So that's not mine to judge. I also was in a conversation today on social media, this post about, if there's a God, why would he create atheists? And, as an atheist, God didn't create me, I'm created. But basically the gist of the conversation was, atheists aren't out there doing good deeds because God told them to, or because they feel they have to measure up to a religious obligation. They're doing it with no religious obligation, with no belief in a higher power or a spiritual entity, or at least religion, right? They do it because they know it's the right thing to do. And it was such a profound, it's the reason we all should do good things, not because Jesus told us to, or Baha'u'llah told us to, or Moses, or Buddha, or Krishna, or Allah, right? No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. So that was a profound Easter Sunday movie for me. While I was coping with the movie, Facebook memories come up, and it was a year that I was 2013. So Molly was about to turn 10 and Gracie was about to turn 12. I gave them 2 Easter baskets, one full of candy, and then I called it their paleo Easter basket. And there were seeds to plant and flowers, jump ropes, a beach towel, like all things that were activity oriented. And so they were jump roping in the yard and in the driveway. And there was a purple chair and a green chair. And Kenny took those out today. The purple and green chair, we still have them. They were brand new in this video. They're 10 years old, 11 years old now. And it just gutted me. I was emotionally tender anyway. Gracie's not here today as I record this. She's in Texas at a wedding. We just did, an Easter egg hunt for Jack in the yard by ourselves. And it was wonderful. Jack had a blast. But, there was no sort of family. My mother came over, which was wonderful. So it was in terms of where I am, in terms of my grief and holidays, it was fine. But there was a lot about it that made me sad. And it evoked a lot of memories. Yesterday, which would be March 30th, I watched another movie on Netflix, and it was called The Noel Diary. And this was based on a novel. It was another profound movie. And I picked it just not knowing what it was about. One of the lead actors was in a series I liked. And so I thought, I like him as an actor. I'll watch this movie. And this movie starts with this famous author at a book signing. He's written his 4th book in a series. He's a multimillionaire. Jacob Tucker, I think his name is, or Jacob somebody. I don't know. He goes home for a bit of a break, likes to be alone, sort of like this character Bart did. He had a hard time with close relationships. Finds out that his mother has died, and he hasn't talked to his mother in several years. So he goes back to his childhood home, and he realizes that his mother's become a hoarder. And as this movie goes along, you see flashbacks and memories. And he was the younger of 2 boys. He had an older brother, Ben. And Ben died just before Christmas at age 7. He climbed up to hang a decoration in a tree, and he died. And shortly after that, his dad left. So it was just him and his mother. So his entire life was growing up, having lost his brother, then having lost his father. So his whole family falls apart in a span of months. And his mother falls apart, which mothers do when they lose children. This really addressed sibling grief and made me think of Gracie all the time. The time frame of the death was in the 60s or 70s. So child loss back then was not spoken of. There weren't support groups. You were encouraged to put it away, to forget about it. And so they never talked about it. His mother put it all away. And she fell apart, and he felt it was his job to care for her. So he comes back as an adult. And while he's going through all of these things, he finds a diary belonging to someone named Noel, and he doesn't remember who that is. This woman shows up at his house named Rachel. She's looking for her birth mother. She's adopted. And this is the last known address for her mother, whose name she doesn't know. And so, of course, Jacob is confused, has no idea. So the neighbor comes over, and the neighbor knows, yes, there was a nanny. Her name had something to do with Christmas. I don't remember what it was. So Noel, right? This woman wants to find her birth mother. And this has been a dead end now. She doesn't know about the diary yet. And Jacob's character hasn't put it together. They go to Vermont because she wants to meet the dad, and he hasn't reconciled anything with his dad. And she convinces him to go together. So they do. They go together. They go to Vermont to meet Jake's dad, who he hasn't seen since he was 7. So you find out through the driving to see the father. They get stuck in a snowstorm. Their trip to Vermont goes from 1 day to like 5 days. And she's looking for her birth mother, and he's looking for reconciliation with his father or understanding. He's angry and he doesn't really want it. He feels like his father took off and took the easy way out. So what you find when he gets there is that the family fell apart, and that one of them had to leave, and he felt that his son should stay with his mother and live in the house. He cut the tree down, so the memory of it was sort of gone. On the drive up, she discovers the diary and reads it and realizes it's a letter, basically a letter to her from her birth mother. Her mother ran away and had to live in secret and felt that she had to give her baby up, and that it was the right thing to do, that as a single Black mother. She just thought she could give her daughter a better life. And so you find out that Rachel's birth parents, the mother is Asian, I believe, and the father is just white. So it's a very, very multiracial family. You also find out that the dad had written letters to his son regularly throughout the years. And the dad thought the son never got the letters. And the son thought the dad just took off and forgot him. So it's all this full circle reconciliation. So that was a movie that made me cry and cry and cry, because all I thought about was Gracie and how she had a life and it fell apart. And the mistake that I didn't want to make, this movie actually made me feel a little bit better, because what I did for Gracie after Molly died, as much as I wanted to leave, to really just get out of here, I realized that I couldn't, that I had to hold together everything that we once had for Gracie. And it was the right thing to do. And I don't believe it was a mistake. It cost me a couple of relationships. I've talked a lot about that. But I put Gracie first because that was the right thing to do. And I don't regret it. And Gracie owes me nothing for it. I'm the one that decided to be her mother. So these are the two movies that I watched on Easter and, 2 days before Molly's birthday and the day before Easter and on Easter Sunday. So Molly's birthday this year, I don't know how it will go because I'm recording this episode a day before. So we did a Venmo, buy Molly a drink, which was sort of my way to invite her friends to remember her in a fun way. If Molly were alive, what would you buy her for a drink? A lot of her friends aren't quite 21, but some of them are. And I've decided that the season of fundraising for real fundraising events will be spring, the season of Molly. And I think it's a way to honor her and honor Gracie and honor what's now become the hardest 2 months of our lives, which are April and May. Gracie's birthday, when she turned 14, I went to Hawaii. Maddie Grant became Maddie Page on April 24th, 2015, Gracie's birthday. And I went to the wedding. So I missed an entire week of their life. I missed April vacation. The girls were alone with Kenny. Gracie went on a DC trip with Rebecca. Molly spent a lot of time with Keisha. I mean, it was manageable and workable, but I was away. I went to Hawaii by myself. I do regret that. That's a trip I wish I could go back and untake. Both trips I regret. So my decision to go to Amsterdam a year later to Gracie felt like a huge smack in the face because I'd already missed her birthday and her vacation. I'd missed it already. I had chosen Maddie over her in her mind. And then in 2016, I chose Roy over her. So Gracie's birthday evokes in me sometimes regret at making decisions. Having said that, regret doesn't change anything. All regret does is provide the opportunity to learn and grow from the decision that you made. And so I try to learn and grow from those decisions and not make similar decisions that put me in front of my children in a way that is selfish. You have to take care of yourself before you take care of other people. I end every podcast with that. I end every podcast with be good to yourself first. But was going to Maddie's wedding being good to myself? No, I think that was just me wanting to go to Hawaii and deciding to go. It was a decision I made after several margaritas and deciding to go to Amsterdam. That's a whole, I still process the manipulation and gaslighting that went into that decision. And, and I think a lot of Roy and I were sometimes equal in our manipulation of one another. Me clinging to him in the abject fear of losing him and doing whatever he said to keep him, and his ability to marionette me so well. I just did what he said again and again. Tomorrow, I'm hoping that Gracie's birthday will be a wonderful day and a fun day, and that this month leading up to her birthday, while filled with very emotional things, Bye Bye Birdie, last play that Molly did, and looking into April and the fundraising events that come with April and all of the anniversaries that come with May, that she can be happy. Another significant piece of Easter for me, in looking back at it, when I posted the video, the biggest emotion that Gracie and I now feel, and Kenny as well, is that we didn't know what was coming. Like, that's what people sometimes don't understand. People will say, well, think of her and be happy. Think of the happy times. Well, of course I think of the happy times all the time. But now that person's dead, the happy time is now a countdown to when she dies. We now know that she doesn't live to be 14, 15, 16, 17. We don't get to look back at these memories together. The memories are all we have, and then they stop. They stop on, in May of 2016. And I think some of her friends that loved her back then don't even think about her anymore. And again, why would they? It's why I'm so dedicated to Maura, my friend Maura, because I don't want her to be forgotten. And I celebrate her all the time. Molly would always bring Easter candy to school. So if there was anyone at school that didn't have Easter candy, she had it to give away. And so I would get into buying extra. So we'd fill their Easter baskets, and then we would always have extra so that Molly could go to school, and Gracie too, with extra candy to give to those kids that showed up on Monday after Easter with no Easter candy because they either don't celebrate it or can't afford it. Molly hated when kids stood out like that. And she'd be very surreptitious about it. She'd walk by and just plop, a Cadbury egg on somebody's desk, or Easter kisses, Hershey kisses or whatever, jelly beans. Brings back a lot of my own memories around child loss and movies and things that affected me. I'm very life imitates art, imitates life. And so when I was in high school, and I believe I've talked about this before, but it came up for me, I read this book called Ordinary People, and it was about a boy that tried to die by suicide because his older brother died in a boating accident and he lived, and he had a survivor guilt. And the family fell apart. And at the end of the movie, the family does fall apart. The mother leaves. She packs a bag and leaves because she can't live. She can't fake it anymore. And they all want to grieve in different ways. The father, the mother, the son, the surviving son. And he almost dies. So now they could have lost both of their sons, and their life truly would be just so over. And I remember I went to the movie with Suzanne Ward, and we both fell apart. Suzanne was not an emotional person, and we cried. We sobbed. Like, I had to have my mother come get us because we were so distraught that, like, I couldn't drive the car, and my mother came up and calmed us down. We were just a mess, a basket case. And we saw it on a weeknight. And I think it was like my senior year in high school. It was before I broke 5 in the mile. It was before I'd graduated. And I remember using the movie in health class to talk about mental health and grief and everything. And the movie just gutted me. It just profoundly gutted me. Like, I really couldn't function. And I think it's because I have such a hard time letting go. And the mother's character was just holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. And that movie came up for me. The final movie that came up for me as a connection to Easter and to Molly memories is Billy Crystal's 700 Sundays. And he does this amazing, it's just him narrating a movie. You watch him talk the whole time. But you don't need to see what he's talking about because he narrates, he's Billy Crystal, and he narrates, and it's really his relationship with his mother and how, her life was 700 Sundays. And their famous way of saying goodbye was, I'll see you when I see you. And the last time he ever spoke to his mother, that's how she said goodbye to him. I'll see you when I see you. And Kenny and I watched that movie together on Easter Sunday, 2014. And we watched it just because I think we were hungover, probably. That was often the case. And I think, the Easter baskets were done and the girls were busy, and it was on, and we just watched it. And it was just this amazing movie that I now always connect to Easter Sunday. And, that's where I'm at. So tomorrow's Gracie's birthday. So please reach out if you're on my socials or her socials and tell her happy birthday. She would love to hear it. 23. She turns 23. Molly turned 21. Again, I don't know who all came, but we put balloons on her grave and a big 21, and hopefully lots of people bought her drinks. Coming up shortly is the CrossFit fundraiser, and then the big gala. Molly turns 21 celebration at the Capitol Center for the Arts. This is a bit of a redundant episode, but my life is redundant when it comes to Molly because I'll never stop missing her and I'll never stop being sad about it. I find more space for joy, and I can remember her more joyfully than I have in the past because time goes by. But I cry a lot. It's just what I do. So Jack had fun. Jack had fun on his birthday. Jack had fun looking for Easter eggs. He had to crack them open every time. He'd open it up. Probably I've posted this on social media by now. I am sure that Bye Bye Birdie was wonderful, and that whatever they did to commemorate Molly in that was wonderful. And I carry on. I just continue. I continue the journey as best I can. So I hope that you'll watch these movies because they're wonderful. And I think we all can get things out of them. Go ahead and listen to Mercy Me's version of I Can Only Imagine. It's a beautiful song. It makes me cry. The Noel Diary was another good one. It's just a good, feel-good movie. That one's a bit more Hollywoodish than I Can Only Imagine, but I Can Only Imagine is based on a true story. Go ahead and read Ordinary People or watch that movie. Some amazing actors in it. Mary Tyler Moore, Kurt Sutherland, Judd Hirsch, Timothy Hutton, just fabulous cast. Does a really good job illustrating child loss, suicide, and family grief. It was really, really well done. That's my podcast for today. I'm just full right now of emotion. I want to be happy. I want my yard to be pretty. I want my kitchen to be done. I just want to be okay. So I'm doing the best I can. So anyway, happy birthday, Gracie. I love you. Be good to yourself in whatever way that manifests. Be good to yourself. Always be good to others. Once you're in a place that you're solid, be good to others. Be good to others even when you're not solid. Just be good to people. And in the words of Bill Harbert Jr., have a good day, everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.